welcome everybody to another episode of Conversations with Grandma Polly. We're so excited about this evening and so gracious and filled with gratitude that you decided to join us today. We have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guest coming back from last week who shared some amazing wisdom with us, and we're not going to get into that right now, but what we are going to get into is the one you all know and love, the grandma that everybody loves. I guess you can call her Big Mama sometimes too. Give it up for Grandma Polly, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up.
Hello, good evening, and happy Thursday. I hope everybody had a wonderful week and a wonderful day. Thank you, Kim, for that wonderful introduction. Thanks to our audience for joining us this evening. Y'all, please show some love for our returning and wonderful guest, Mr. Osceola Thomas. This man is here to drop the mic this afternoon. Mr. Thomas has been labeled controversial as he's a man who speaks his mind. He's definitely not one to sugarcoat. He's an author of several books and a public speaker. Osceola Thomas is also an accomplished grant writer and nonprofit consultant who has spent the majority of his career partnering with juvenile justice, education, and mentoring agencies throughout the U.S. to help reduce negative trends for our minority groups. He resides in Charlotte, North Carolina with his wife and kids. Good evening and welcome back, Mr. Thomas. How are you this evening?
Good evening. Good evening. I am exceptional this evening. It's a pleasure to be back.
And we are so glad to have you back. All you guys that's sitting out there, you came back, you guys requested. First, I want you to like this video. Then we want you to share this video. Then we want you to give us some hearts and show us some love. We're not going to waste a lot of time this evening. We're going to jump right back in. We're going to pick up where we left off last week. I'm excited to continue this conversation of your book. The Street Cannot Have My Son. And we're going to kind of recap a little bit, and then we're going to go into it because I want to read that tribute to hip hop again. And Mr. Thomas will take it from there by topics that's in the book. And we know you got some wonderful juice for us. So let's get started. Tribute to hip hop. Beef. An unsettled grief because the nigga is spitting hate through his teeth. And the only recourse was to have that brother rest in peace. Unresolved conflict, unfair splitting of the profit, boys riding deep to handle it over some he said, she said BS. Rappers seeking retaliation because of what they heard on the radio station. Bulletproof vests and loaded heaters to settle what someone said across subwoofers and tweeters. How many bodies have to drop from the pop, pop, pop of a 9 or a Glock before the beefing finally stops? Because the impact of a hot track can destroy lifelong contacts, causing boys united and ultimately fight against one another for the lyrics they recite, while using the mic to viciously ignite a fire that only quenched at the burial site. I hope and pray for that glorious day when the beefing comes to an end and the spirit of hip hop unite those who used to be friends. We kind of went over a little bit last week, and you spoke about focusing on their strengths. Can you give us a recap on that, and then we'll go into Where Is My Father?
Certainly. So when I wrote that book about hip hop, or that tribute about hip hop, it's because most of our black boys, if you ever notice, when a child starts school, especially pre-kindergarten or kindergarten, they're excited about learning. They're running into the building, their lunchbox, their book bags, they're excited. And you ask them what do they want to be, and the world is their oyster. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. All these different things. But by the time they reach fourth grade, you ask that same child, what do you want to be? I want to be a hip hop artist or I want to be a professional athlete, football player, basketball player. The question then becomes what happened to that child's love for learning? Why has it diminished and why do they see themselves um, solely as entertainers? So that's why I wrote that book. It's because schools focus more on a child's deficit and their pathology than they do the strengths, interests, and capabilities of boys of color. The reality is most boys of color have difficulty in traditional classrooms because they were not designed for boys of color. They were actually designed for European females. If you research the educational model that we employ today, it actually comes from a Prussian model. But with that being said, black boys are energetic. They love to learn by using their hands, so they're tactile learners or kinesthetic by physical movement. So when you have a child come into a classroom, sit down, you give them ditto sheets, you give them a teacher, mostly a European female, um, that doesn't engage or hold their interests, of course they're going to daydream. As a matter of fact, I point this out to public school systems. How many times have I sat in a professional development or a conference or a seminar and teachers doing professional development, if the lecturer didn't hold their interest, they're doodling on the PowerPoint. They're texting under the table. They're getting up, going out into the lobby area, taking a bathroom break, and just talking to their friends. Now, if a child was to do that, they would diagnose that child with ADD, ADHD, and he would have to be tested and put on mood altering medication. But when we as adults engage something that doesn't hold our interest, we have the autonomy to get up and do whatever we want to do. So we hold children to a higher standard than we do adults. So I have an issue with that, and I wrote about that in the book so that people can see. We talk about IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act. I say no, it's individuals destroying educational aspirations. That's what it is.
That is wow. Wow,
And
wow.
I get that, especially when you point out the part that I'm rephrasing it a little bit. Our children are coming from black homes and black communities,
Yes.
and we put them in these classrooms with European females, and now these kids have no idea because they cannot identify with that. They
Right.
were A lot of them really haven't been exposed to that culture really. So now
Right.
it was more of a cultural shock for both the instructor and the child, and more so the child than the instructor.
Right.
So now we're going to go into the part of where's my father? Because there's a large community where that is missing.
Yes. So, I don't. In the book, I wrote about where is my father. A young child growing up in a matriarchal household. With his mother and grandmother, and he wants to know where is his father. He doesn't know where dad is, and so the streets adopt him and the streets raise him. And so, mom is always telling him, "You're just like your father." And he never understood that. He found a picture of his father in his mother's pocketbook with an orange jumpsuit on, and he asked his grandmother, "Who is this?" She tells him that it's his father. He goes before the judge because he gets in trouble, and the judge wants to know where's the father, and they call on the father who's a proxy, which represents the streets. I use the metaphor. So one day he gets incarcerated, only to find his father in the same penal institution that he's sent to. And then he says, "Now I understand what mom meant when she said, I was just like my father." And at the end, it says, "I wish we didn't have to meet like this." So now he understands where his father is because he's wearing the same orange jumpsuit. And that's where they're reunited or become acquainted in the penal institution. And the sad reality is, most men don't understand, you know, with being a father, it's more than just impregnating a woman. A man has to have a vision for his family. And one of the things that I talk about, not only having a vision, there's a scripture that says, "Without a vision, people perish." And then it goes on further to say, "Without knowledge, my people perish." So when you don't have vision and you don't have knowledge, your family becomes a family of dysfunction. They don't have a sense of direction, and the family just becomes disorganized or disoriented. So, one of the things that I share with fathers, the most important thing you can do as a father, and we have fathers on this call, I hope that you're listening to me. The most important thing that you can do as a father is two things. One is called the birthright, the other is called the blessing. The birthright comes from a Jewish or Hebrew tradition where the father would provide an estate for his eldest son and for his younger sons to make sure that upon his demise, his widowed wife is taken care of and his unmarried daughters. That was the birthright. So a father had to be in a position to make sure that financially he was taking care of the family while he was present and that he had an estate plan in place to take care of them upon his demise. The second thing, then that was the birthright. The second thing is called the blessing. The blessing was more important than the birthright. If you know the story about Jacob and Esau, you know that Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. So he wasn't concerned so much with his father's material possessions, but he was concerned about the blessing. The blessing represented the verbal future or favor that a father would speak upon his son. May the God of heaven bless you with all of the due. May your brothers bow before you. May you come before great men. He would speak this blessing. And remembering the story, Jacob stole the blessing from his brother Esau, and Esau said, after the grieving of my father, I'm going to kill my brother. So he was willing to sell the birthright, the material possessions, the estate of his father for a bowl of soup. But when you rob me of my father speaking a favorable future upon my life, I now have to murder you. Our boys have no one speaking a favorable future upon their life. No one is saying to them, you have the ability to be an entrepreneur. You have the ability to create wealth. You are a king. You are a prince. Every time I go into a school, I never address our boys as boys or students. I call them young prince. That's what I'll say, young prince or young king. And that's how I address them. I want them to understand that you're royalty. You're not the product of chattel slavery. Chattel slavery was a disruption in your history. It's not your history. When God made man, he made men that looked like you. Your history traces back to the original continent called Africa. Understand that chemistry comes from Kemet. Understand that the great civilization of the Greeks, they stole it from the Alexandria Library, from people that look like you. So it's a stolen legacy. It actually comes from you.
And then they burnt
So
Alexandria down too.
that's exactly right. And they took the knowledge, and Greece plagiarized what came from Africa. So it's not their legacy. They're not the greatest civilization that ever graced the planet. Africa is the continent of Africa. And so I want them to understand this. And as a matter of fact, I'll share with our boys, watch how powerful this is to say to a boy, the very God that fills the universe, you are the visible manifestation of that God. And they said to me, what do you mean? I said, if I was to take you to a body of water, let's say I take you to the ocean, and I take a syringe, and I dip that syringe in the ocean, and I extract 5 cc's of ocean into that syringe. While that syringe might not be the ocean macro, it is the ocean micro. What's inside that syringe is 100% pure ocean. All of the properties of the ocean are within that syringe. I said, so while you may not be God macro, you are God micro. Inside of you are 100% pure God. So walk like it, act like it, think like it. There is no lesson plan. There is no textbook that a teacher should ever put before you that you can't master because you are intelligent beyond comprehension. Fathers need to be speaking this to their sons because as a person thinks, so they become. Thoughts become things. When you tell a child you'll never be no good, you've planted a seed. So don't be surprised when it manifests. I tell my children all the time, You are powerful beyond measure. I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than your father. So I wrote that book, Where is My Father? Because where there are no fathers, the blessing is missing. And so we need fathers or mentors to step in because in the African American household, there was a study that said 60% of African American homes don't have fathers in them. So we need some fathers or some men to step in and be proxies. That's why the biggest push for me is a proposal writer. I write grants and bring in millions of dollars to nonprofits every year. And I focus mainly on mentorship programs because our young boys need fathers. They need men to speak life into them. Our boys not afraid to die, they're afraid to live. They need somebody to speak life into them. They have no understanding of life. Life is meant to be enjoyed. I wish above all that you would live and be well and prosper. But they don't understand that because nobody's speaking life or a favorable future upon their life. So that's
Wow. That was
That was powerful, and when I look at it, you done went so far ahead of me, in bestowing the blessing and all of these things. And yes, we do need mentors, and I have this conversation with our black men all the time. When we look at, I'm going to say this before we go farther into the book, and I want to know what your opinion is on this. When we look at the church and we look at the homes, we look at the community, and we look at the schools, the churches are filled with women, the mothers are leading the children, in the community, and then and not all men. I'm just talking about the ones who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. The mothers are working two and three jobs to make ends meet. The mothers are the ones who are disciplining the children. And I often say that a woman can teach a young boy a young king, how to be an adult, but she cannot teach him how to be a man. And when these young boys are growing up without their fathers, then they go callously, in a lot of cases, they callously go out and start making children, not having the ability to provide for them, not even having the ability to teach them because they did not have the proper teaching
right,
from the male's perspective. And I'm be
right.
quiet right there, and I'm gonna let you address that point.
Wow. So, as a father, I have a son. That's my firstborn, my strength. And that's what I say to him, son, you're my firstborn, you're my strength. And my daughter is my youngest, she's my princess. So I shared with them and I share with my son, my job is to teach you how to be a man. And Monet, my job is to teach you what to expect from a man. So a father has a dual role there when it comes to a son and daughter. My job as a father is to teach my son how to be a man and my daughter what to expect from a man by modeling the expectation. I'm going to share with the viewers two stories that I shared with my children. I shared with my son, it's called the Baskin and Robbins story. I was taught in seminary that rules without relationship equals rebellion. So you can tell a child, don't do this. Why? Because I said so. That doesn't work. You have to give them an explanation to explain why. If you don't give them the why, curiosity killed the cat, satisfaction brought it back. They will satisfy their curiosity. So I share with my son, I want you to save yourself until marriage. I don't want you to engage in premarital sex. Then I share with him because God said that we should abstain until marriage. Why, Dad? Okay, so now I have to give you the why. So here's the why, son. Let's say one day I take you to get some ice cream. We go to Baskin Robbins. Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. So I say to you, you know what, Brandon? Daddy is balling. So today is Father and Son Day. Just go wild. Sample all the flavors you want. So my son samples butter pecan, chocolate chip, cookie dough, vanilla, strawberry, etc. And then I said, son, I'm letting you sample all the flavors. I said, now that you know what they taste like, what happens when one day you have to commit to chocolate for the rest of your life? I said, how hard do you think that will be now that your palate has sampled a variety of flavors? I said, son, if it will be difficult after sampling all the flavors for you to commit to one flavor, I said, don't engage Baskin and Robbins. He understood exactly what I meant. That's the problem we have today with men impregnating all of these different women. We are not disciplined to commit to one woman because we've allowed ourselves to sample so many different flavors. Then I had to share another story with my daughter. I said, Monet, I want you to think of yourself as a precious vehicle. I said, when a boy gets a permit, he usually gets a permit and he drives in a vehicle that's not his. And it's not, generally, it's not a new car, it's a used car. I said, his goal is that he'll put a lot of miles on it. He gonna speed, rev the engine up. He gonna do some K turns, U turns, leave some skid marks, etc. Because he's just working with a permit. I say, but when he gets his license, he wants a vehicle with a new car smell, something with 0 miles on it. I said, in other words, don't be the permit. Don't permit him to have your body until he's ready to get a license, marriage license. And then you will be that car with 0 miles on the odometer with that new car smell.
Can I just? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I hear it, man. That is so deep. I hear it. I hear it. I hear it. And all of that right there is something every parent needs to be teaching their children. And it goes back to what you said. Don't tell them, just don't say, don't do it, but give them the reasoning behind and the understanding
Right.
as to why this is something that they don't want to engage in. Because my thing is, one bad choice, and a lot of people don't look at it as a bad choice at that moment. You're in your feelings and you're just having fun or whatever, but it turns into a bad choice because now this is someone you don't want to be bothered with. Like you said, they got the permit but not the license, but then you're attached to this person for the rest of your life, and now you're miserable. So this is something that we really need to instill in our children. And that led into the next thing. What do we do? But you've covered a whole lot of that. And if there's anything else you want to add to it,
Okay.
please feel free because we're enjoying the conversation. And you guys give Mr. Osceola some hearts, please.
Yeah,
If y'all enjoying this, y'all throw some hearts in here.
I just I'm behind scenes, but I'm so moved over here, brother. It's the way you the permit and the license. Oh my god, that was profound. Truly, truly profound.
Well,
Very powerful.
I certainly appreciate that. The one thing I will say, you talked about the black church, and I didn't touch on that, so let me just go back and touch. There was a 2019 study done. That 2019 study piggybacked off a study that was done that showed the black church in a 10-year period brought in about $420 billion. The 2019 study piggybacked on that and has now shown the black church has brought in over $800 billion. 800 billion. So if you look at 10%, so this 800 billion is based off the charitable giving of its membership. So people give a tenth of their salary to the organized church to make up this $800 billion. But my question is, what if the church then gave a tenth of the tenth that it collected? So from 800 billion, you now have $80 billion. $80 billion, we now take that as a national spending mechanism. And no, nothing negative to say about Minister Farrakhan or Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton. But my question is, rather than convening a million man march, rather than a protest, why can't we have a million pastor summit and have these pastors give a tenth of the tenth to a national agenda with a national spending mechanism attached to it, comprised of that $80 billion, which is a tenth of the tenth, to rebuild disenfranchised and marginalized communities of color. Black banks, black hospitals, building HBCUs, building up Title I dilapidated schools where children don't have the necessary resources to compete with their middle class and affluent counterparts. Why can't we have a million pastor summit, hold the pastors accountable if you're going to take a tenth from people who are low income, paying a 30-year mortgage to a financial institution that wouldn't give them a loan based on their individual credit? If you're going to collect that from the people, why not have a summit and you give a tenth of the tenth and let's rebuild our communities from the ground up? That's the question that I have. So why do you see most churches full of black women? Because men recognize, here's the thing, and this is a colloquial or a street phrase, game recognize game. Men understand that what's going on is nothing more than the pastor hitting a woman's emotional strings and getting her to give out of her purse. I teach a study on Wednesday evening, the book of Revelation, and now we're talking about the apocalyptos, the unveiling. And so last night I dealt with the church of Laodicea, carnal church. They thought they were wealthy because they had materialism. And I shared with them, nowhere in scripture, ask your pastor, your bishop, your apostle, you can ask Desmond Tutu, it doesn't matter. From Genesis to Revelation, you will never find God asking for tithe money. He'll never ask anyone to pay a tithe. He'll tell them to eat the tithe, because it was a holy meal that foreshadowed the body and blood of Christ, which when it goes into the true temple of the believer, it produces eternal life. So I'm sharing with them, the goal is not for us to build brick and mortar. Let's use our revenues to build people, the true habitation of the living God. So I have a section in the book that compels churches to come out of their brick and mortar temples and let's go out and confront that big bad wolf that's huffing and puffing and blowing the community down. So that's the only thing I want to say about the church.
Oof. I got it. I got it. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you 100%. And this is often my complaint. I'm like, the money is going into the churches, but yet we say that there is no money in the black communities. And to hear you throw those numbers out, it is power. There is power. There is monetary gains. And all of this is coming off of the people who I would call, y'all say the have and the have nots. The have not is what's
Right.
causing the churches to have, but so yet these people can't even get money from the church to have a prescription filled when they're in need. So we pour the money into the brick and mortar in the church community, and we forget about the people in the community who's actually giving the money to the church. These pastors are riding around with fine cars, $1 million homes, planes, all this stuff. And the funny part about it, and I'm not going to beat up on the church, but I will say this. You go into the average community, these are not $1 million communities that these $1 million churches are built in. They're in the poor people's community and selling false hope in a sense. You're selling God to them in one aspect, telling them to pray and oh, how God will take care of you. But God has already provided when they poured it all into the church and the churches are not giving it back. They're not building the community. And that's all I gotta say about that one. And we could go into part 4. We're gonna go through this because we're gonna give you some time to just really drop the mic, But we comes down to that part where it says, what can the community do?
Okay, so that's a very good question. One of the things that I'm doing workshops currently, because for those of you that are listening, Biden, under his administration, has allocated a $1.9 trillion allocation under the American Rescue Plan. Under Biden's administration, this $1.9 trillion allocation, there's dollars for the Child Care Stabilization Fund, Child Care Development Block Grant. You have ESSER dollars, elementary education, secondary schooling, emergency relief funds. You also have 21st Century Community Learning Centers dollars under the Every Student Succeeds Act. This is for structured after school. Under the Consolidated Appropriations Act, which is juvenile justice, you also have dollars for the new RED initiative. RED is an acronym for Reducing Racial and Ethnic Disparities. So there are dollars to keep minority youth diverted from the juvenile justice system, because we know that on average across this country it costs $14,400 to educate a child, but to incarcerate that same child is over $214,000. So there are dollars allocated under Biden, who has the second highest Consolidated Appropriations Act allocation in history. The largest allocation was under President Obama in 2010. So this is an unprecedented time now for nonprofits to come together collectively with your faith-based community, and let's have a collective dialogue. Let's create an interagency collaborative. And what I do when I bring these groups together is we look at all the life domains that lead consumers to self-sufficiency. So we look at employment, education, residential, safety, emotional, psychological, all of these mental health, all of these areas. And we look at what the data says about each of those life domain areas. And where there are deficits in those areas, we bring partners to the table to satisfy those life domains. So if the data shows that the majority of parents in the Western Corridor have not completed their secondary education, we will partner with a community college to create a satellite campus so parents can complete their GED or their high school diploma. If the data shows that there are high unemployment rates, we'll partner with Goodwill Industries and access the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act funding and create a career awareness program or a job development initiative. We'll partner again with the community college and have them come in like we're doing in Marion, South Carolina. The community college is teaching phlebotomy, CNA, medical transcription, and medical coding for those parents. So when they learn those skills, they'll now be qualified to earn a livable wage. If the data shows that these students are not on grade level, they're not grade level proficient or demonstrating academic growth in a school year, then we will partner and ask the principals, give us those students that are struggling on end of year tests, and then we want to identify your teachers that did double digit growth on EOGs last year. And we want to employ those teachers to provide extended learning time in a structured after school environment with those struggling students so they get more time on task and everything that we do in after school aligns with day school learning objectives. Now we're reinforcing Johnny's opportunity to master grade level content on end of year assessments. So whatever the data says, we come together collectively, put a plan in place, and then we tie state dollars to those initiatives to make sure that we're creating change at the grassroots level. And then we partner with the university to say, look, these are educational dollars. Can we use one of your master level students who needs to complete their master's level thesis or action research project to do their thesis on the efficacy of this program, so that we do a longitudinal study? If it's a 4-year grant, we're going to track this grant for 4 years to show that the model that we're employing in this community is actually creating positive, measurable outcomes. So now that student provides the nonprofit with an evaluation at no cost, and the student now gets to do his evaluation or thesis on the long-term effects of Title IV legislation upon students attending Title I impoverished schools. So it's a win-win for the community, for the families, and for the state that has to take their outcome data and report it back to the U.S. Department of Education. Does that make sense?
And that's what I'm talking about. Like I said in the beginning, many of us complain about the state of our community. But just in reading your book and having the conversations with you, you're promoting and producing purpose, understanding, and putting things into action. You're not you recognize the why, and then you turn around and you put it into action where it becomes productive. If you have someone watching this who's interested about getting this program developed in their community, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so I'll give them my business mobile, and
Okay.
that's area code 704 497 3943. And just to share, one of the things that I always share is that documentation beats conversation. So I could sit here and articulate myself all day, but my track record is documented across the United States and in China. I had an opportunity to meet with the Minister of Education in China and had a chance to create program models for their secondary students to matriculate into our universities and college here in the West. But just this past year, three of my grants in North Carolina, two of those organizations just received their 501c3 tax exempt nonprofit status, had never rendered one program. And my one client in Winston-Salem scored in the top 10% of the state out of 100 counties as a brand new nonprofit. His proposal, his grant application was scored higher than his school district. So I share with individuals, people ask me all the time, can we start a nonprofit and apply for funding? You can create a nonprofit and apply for funding in that same year and be providing services in the same year that you receive your tax determination status. The thing is, you make sure that you have a plan in place. You never want to just chase dollars. So when I work with clients, I always make sure that we convene a meeting with the stakeholders. We look at the data to find out what the needs of the community are. We bring the stakeholders to the table and the professionals or community-based partners, and we create a comprehensive plan, something holistic in scope, so that there are no cracks for our individual citizens and recipients to fall through. We want to lead consumers to self-sufficiency where they're able to function independently of any formal services intervention. That is the goal, moving people from poverty to middle class and then middle class to affluence. And before we end the call tonight, I would like to talk to your viewers and just share some information with them about how they can provide financial literacy and a financial foundation for their children, because that's the thing that I'm promoting now when it comes to our black boys. Let's rebrand our black boys. They're not thugs, they're not criminals. No, we want to create entrepreneurs, businessmen, investors, and wealth creators. And it's going to start with it's going to have to start with the parents.
We have to start in the home, and that's where the village starts. That you're definitely right. It starts in the home. But before I go on with that, there's a question, and it says, has any of these ideas been presented to any pastors for their thoughts on this matter?
That's a great question. So here in the state of South Carolina, this is the first year I was brought to South Carolina in October of last year to facilitate the economic summit. So we addressed the Interstate 95, the corridor of shame here in South Carolina. Now I'm meeting with pastors all around the state of South Carolina, and we have identified the needs throughout the state. Currently, I have three pastors funded. Brother Anderson, Octavius Anderson, who's over juvenile justice funding for the state of South Carolina, just convened a telephone call with him to talk about Title II juvenile justice formula grants. And the pastors are now in position. We're having conversations. And I will say this, most of the pastors that I've spoken with had no idea that these dollars were available for the church to apply for. So I shared with them, yes, Pastor, you can apply for ESSER dollars, you can apply for 21st century dollars, you can apply for juvenile justice dollars. I shared with them, you can create a nonprofit, have your nonprofit allocate a salary to the nonprofit, and then the nonprofit use that salary to launch a for-profit Medicaid reimbursable entity as an LLC. And let's grow this model. Then you can replicate it and create subordinate chapters in the surrounding counties. So we're having that conversation now. We're talking about building 700 credit score communities, the goal being to eradicate poverty. We are partnering with attorneys and financial advisors to do estate planning. We're showing individuals how they can use life insurance as a means of transferring wealth. So we're talking about now creating generational wealth. Parents are now learning about revocable and irrevocable trust to protect assets once they accumulate those. So we are building communities with the faith-based community here in South Carolina, and my goal is to expand that to North Carolina and New Jersey next year. So one of the things that I want to share with your listeners, because I'm about wealth creation, and as I share with you, it starts in the home. I don't know how many people on the call tonight understand the power of starting your own business. But when you look at the IRS, they have this table on their site. It shows the gross allocations by tax item. Believe it or not, individuals pay the most taxes in this country. W-2 wage earners pay more taxes than any other entity. So wage earners or W-2 employees paid 55% of the taxes last year, 2021. Businesses, believe it or not, paid 10% or make up 10% of the taxes that go to the Internal Revenue Service. Business owners pay 10%, employees pay 50% or 55%, excuse me. And then the other percentage is listed under other, which stands for estate tax, gift tax, excise tax, etc. But the majority of the taxes in this country are paid for by employees. So the goal I share with individuals is start a home-based business in your home. No, you can actually employ your child. We're talking about wealth creation. So when you start a home-based business in your home and you don't have to file any paperwork with the state, you will operate as what is called a sole proprietor. You start this business in your home and then you hire your child as an employee of your home-based business. The IRS, as of 2022, will allow you to pay that child $12,950. So you may say, Mr. Thomas, where am I getting an extra $12,950 from? You're not. What you're going to say to your child is that, look, I'm going to create you a job description. I'm going to have you sign an application. You create your own application, have them sign it, give them a job description, and you create a schedule. You pay them a salary. Now, here's where the salary comes from. You pay for groceries for your child. You might pay for extracurricular activities for your child. You might buy them school clothes, supplies. You're not buying any of that anymore. Now you will cut them a payroll check, and you will have that go into a custodial account. And the child will now buy their own groceries, their own school clothes, their own supplies, pay for their own activities, and you get to write it off as a tax deduction up to $12,950 a year per child. So now you're getting a tax deduction for the things that you're doing as a parent anyway. And when you write these off as tax deductions and you receive that tax refund next year, you're able to take that and create a Roth IRA for your child. And you can start a Roth IRA for any child that has an income coming in. Now you're able to build wealth for that child. So that's one thing. That's one thing that I want to share. Second thing, I'm challenging all parents to meet with an insurance advisor and ask that insurance advisor about whole life insurance policies. 70% of African Americans, this is a research statistic, 70% of African Americans die without an estate plan in place. Please, family, I'm on Facebook challenging my followers every day to make sure you have a living will. Make sure you have a financial power of attorney. Make sure you have a healthcare directive in place. And make sure you have a trust created. Why a trust? Because if you open up an insurance policy on your child, hear this, whole life insurance, because that's called permanent insurance. If you have a term policy for 20 years and you outlive that 20 years, you get nothing. A whole life is just that. It covers you the entire life up to age 90, some 99. But it also builds cash value, so you create your own bank. So you're paying for this whole life policy. It has a death benefit And the more premiums you pay, it has a cash value that's building up. So now you're able to borrow against the cash value of that policy. And now you can fund initiatives without using a bank because you created your own private family bank through your whole life insurance policy. Talk to an insurance advisor about this. So I'm going to share with you what Osceola is doing. I have a whole life insurance policy on both my children, but I control it. Since I took the policy out, I'm the owner, but it's on my children. So now that policy, when my daughter gets married, I can go into that policy, borrow against it to pay for her wedding. My son will start a business, I can go into that policy, borrow against it, and help him with his business. If I don't pay it back, guess what? The only thing that happens is the death benefit, they will take those proceeds from the face value of the death benefit if I don't pay it back. So it's like I have a private bank. Now, here's the great, all of the assets that I'm accumulating from my children. Remember, I talked about the birthright. The father has to leave a birthright, or he has to leave possessions to his children to make sure they're cared for in his absence. So I shared with my financial advisor, I said, I want to leave my assets to my children, but I don't necessarily believe right now at their age, they're in their 20s, that they're financially responsible enough to handle large sums of wealth. I said, so I want to protect my assets. He said, so what do you say? I said, I want to create a trust. I want it to be an irrevocable trust. While I'm living, it's still revocable. I can make changes. But when I die, that trust becomes irrevocable. It cannot be changed, ironclad. So now what happens, I want the trust to be the beneficiary of my estate. All my assets will go to the trust. And then the trust will administer my assets to my children on a monthly distribution schedule. So now dad is taking care of them from the grave. If they ever have hardship, they don't have to call dad on the phone because I'm not here anymore. But I have monthly installments coming to your account every month to make sure you're taken care of in my absence. So the trust, so now the trust administers your assets. And the children now become the recipients of the trust who's the beneficiary. I hope that makes sense, so you're following me. But I want you to start a home-based business. When you have that home-based business, use that home-based business, number one, to minimize tax liability. When you start a home-based business, you get to write off a percentage of your house or your apartment. You get to write off a percentage of your electricity, your utilities, your cable, your internet, your cell phone, and then everything you do with regard to mileage. I'm getting ready to let you into Osceola's world now. When it comes to mileage, my wife and I, we're taking a trip to somewhere very nice. I won't give the name away. But I've already called the hotel. 5 days we'll be there. I called the hotel. I spoke to the manager. I said, I'm going to be there on this day, and I need to meet with you because I'm a consultant, and I'm thinking about planning a conference here with my clients. So she's confirmed the email that we have that meeting scheduled. Also, I need to meet with your cooking team, your chef, because I need to discuss food allergies, and we need to come up with a menu. That's day 2. I need to speak to your housekeeping staff. I want to make sure the rooms are nice and cared for. I want to make sure the linens, etc. Okay, day 4, I need to speak with the concierge because I want to plan an itinerary while we're there. So 4 out of the 5 days, I have meetings set up, and I have emails documenting those meetings. What did I just do? I just made the entire trip tax deductible because it's a business trip. So now my flight has to be paid for, my hotel has to be paid for, my food has to be paid for, and my wife is my CFO. She's the chief financial officer of my business director. So she has to attend because not only will she handle all the finances, she's also going to be my recording and corresponding secretary. So I just made that entire trip tax deductible. When I leave my house and go to the coffee shop, because I have a home-based business, I'm leaving my office and I'm going to a meeting. So everything I do, I track it via mileage. So at the end of the year, when I put 15,000 miles on my car, I'm now recording over 7,500 miles is now going to be tax deductible.
So I got to jump in here.
Please.
I got to jump in here. Oh my God, man. When So you would say doing the mileage is better as opposed of doing just the wear and tear or what on the car?
It, it depends on which one is going to give you the better refund.
Okay.
So generally, when you talk about mileage, you might do what, $2,000 a year in mileage or maintenance.
Okay.
But if you're talking about driving, how many miles do you put on your car a year? About 12,000, 13,000. And so
Oh,
you look at the governmental rate now is 58.5 cents per mile. So you take more than half of that, you get to now claim. And then if you're business savvy, what I would do, I would create a resolution for my business saying that I resolve on this day to create a mileage reimbursement policy for the business, that the employees of this business can be reimbursed every month for the mileage they cover for business usage.
wow.
So I have one of those. It's a resolution. So when I drive to New Jersey, I just did New Jersey. It's 721 miles there and 721 miles back. I just had the business write me a check for $721 to cover my mileage.
Jeez. Wow.
And I'm still going to write off at the end of the year. So everywhere I write, every month, the business cuts me a mileage reimbursement check because I'm an employee of the business.
Got you.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
do have I know Renee, give me 1 second. There was somebody, Ramona Moore Big Eagle, she asked, I gotta add this to the broadcast because this is what I'm thinking too. So she said, why aren't you running for office?
Well, I'm flattered, thank you. But to be totally honest with you, and I mean this from the heart, and I'll stand before God and give an account for what I'm saying right now. All I want to do is help people. I want to help people win. And so if I can't help you, I'll never hurt you. I just want to see people win. So
Mm,
the information and the knowledge that I have, I'm going to share because I want to see families win and win big.
wow.
Yes. Um, so there are no more questions out there. I don't
Oh
think.
yeah, there's some more.
Where is it? Bring them up.
They are some more. Uh, this right here, Tanja said, how can we plant people so people buy in and then act? I
I'm
guess.
sorry, repeat that question.
She completely believes in self-sufficiency model.
Yes.
Realistically speaking, how can we infiltrate there, and how does one get people interested in their own self? It's multi questions, and how can we plant so people buy in and then act, and they're motivated to act.
You
I
know the
just
one thing I've learned, and for those of you that have a job or you work at a place of employ, I've worked with school systems for years. One of the things that I used to notice, they would have staff meetings or, you know, and at the staff meeting, the agenda was already set and they would impose all of these directives upon the staff and the staff would come there and they would hate it. They were drudging it. Why? Because adults or parents don't like to be parented. They like to be partnered with.
mm,
They don't like to be parented, they like to be partnered with. So here's the goal: create these three questions to partnership or to getting buy in. And I do this with principals all the time. Here are the three questions:
okay.
what do you need? How can we help? And then how can we partner together to do what's in the best interest of you and your child and you and your family?
And
What do you
partner.
need? Because here's the thing, and I want you to think about this, Sister Renee. Let's say Sister Renee, she's an amazing cook, and she says to me, Osceola, I'm going to invite you over, and I'm going to cook you the best steak and onions. I'm going to cook you steak that make you smack your lips and suck your fingers. And she has this my grandmother's recipe with gravy and onions, and she's talking and talking. She says, "When do you want to have this meal?" And I have to say to her, Sister Renee, I'm a vegan. What just happened? I just shut her whole presentation down because she assumed that what she was offering was what I needed or wanted. The goal is never to assume that people want what you have. You ask them what they need and then you let them tell you. And once you're able to satisfy their need, they're receptive to accepting what you offer. So, what do you need? Then, how can we help? And then how can we partner together to do what's in the best interest of you and your family? Those are the three questions to building partnership. When I meet with pastors, when I meet with community leaders, I never go in as though I'm the expert on their situation, because I'm not. It doesn't matter how many lectures I went to, how many textbooks I read. If I turned the tassel to the side and walked across the stage, I'm not the expert on anyone's life. So whenever I meet with a group, I ask them first and foremost, what do you need? Because you know better what you need than I do. And here's how I can help you meet those needs. So that's the three fundamental questions to partner.
That right there, it just seals the whole deal, because the way you explained it is not I'm approaching as I know what you need or I know what you want. I'm opening the door so you can tell me what it is that you need, what it is that you want, and then we can come together and figure out how we can make it happen. I love that concept. I hope y'all taking notes because I'm gonna have to put this one in my notebook.
Oh yeah.
Um, that right there, I think, is the whole beginning and the end of. I don't want to use the word fixing, but turning the situation of our youth around. That right there, because you're coming up with a plan to make it happen, but the solution is coming from their need.
Excuse me.
And I like that concept. I'm gonna have to adapt that. Kenny, I hope you wrote that down
Oh yeah. I'm over
because
here. I'm acting like I'm not even producing. I'm just sitting here like a guest, like wow. Wow,
yes, I
salivating.
mean that is awesome right there. And I want you guys. I mean, I told y'all he was gonna drop the mic.
Yeah.
He did.
Someone asked, is this information in your book too, as well?
A lot of the information is in my book. That's especially
Yes.
about coming together collectively as a community and applying for these dollars and putting a plan in place. That's the last chapter that deals with what the community can do. So here's something else for the listeners. Um, the goal should be when your child graduates high school, they should graduate high school with at least a 700 credit score, especially if you have good credit. If you have good credit, you can put your child on your credit cards as an authorized user. And as an authorized user, you don't have to give the child a card, but they get the benefit of your credit profile. So now they graduate with a 700 credit score because mom or dad had good credit and they put me on their card as an authorized user and they paid their card on time. Also, what a powerful graduation gift if when your child entered the ninth grade, you had that child create a limited liability company. A child can create a limited liability company.
Mm.
They get in ninth grade, have them create an LLC. Now, the adult may have to sign as the organizer, or the child can be the organizer. It doesn't matter because you can put a clause in there with your articles of organization, excuse me. When you submit those to the Secretary of State, you can put that an adult member of the LLC will sign as the signator on all contractual agreements because minors can't enter into contracts, so they can break contracts. So a lot of vendors don't feel comfortable entering into contract with minors. But you can say you have an adult signator as one of the members of the LLC. But the organizer of the LLC can be a high schooler. Have your child create an LLC, open a bank account, have them create a DUNS, which is Data Universal Numbering System, so the business now has a credit profile, and a SAM account, which stands for Systems Awards Management. You need to have a SAM account if your business is going to do any contractual or grant funding with the government. So now they have a bank account, they have a DUNS profile, they have a SAM profile, and now that same business, you will open up a business bank account and pay that child on business payroll paychecks. You can contract payroll with a company called Gusto. They only charge $51 a month. Gusto will do all the tax reporting, quarterly filings, issue the child a W-2 at the end of the year, etc.
Wow.
Now that same child will open up an account with Staples, a Net 30 account, get a business card, Sam's, whatever for supplies. And now they have a Net 30 account. That's going to create a business credit profile for the child's business all 4 years while they're in high school. Now, what type of business are they going to have? Listen to me, parents. Are you ready for this? and I'm sure Renee can. And I saw Brother Wayne on here as well. This is what I want you to do. Your child has something in their possession. It's called a smartphone. What I want you to do is have your child create their own publishing company, an LLC publishing company. And then I just did this with a group of young people in Marion, South Carolina, and they are amazed. I said to them, if you had to give your life story a title, what would you name it? They wrote their title down. I said, now I want you to think about the 10 most profound events in your life, whether they were traumatic or whether they were triumphant. I want you to write those experiences down. Write down 10 of them. They did that. I said, those 10 things you wrote down, each of them are chapters. Now I want you to take your smartphone. You have something called notes in here, or you have some system in here that you can press record and it will type out your words as you're speaking. Every day, I want you to take this smartphone, start with chapter number one. You're going to devote 7 days to each of those chapter titles. And all you're going to do is hit record on your phone and you're going to speak about that event, why it's either triumphant or why it was traumatic. At the end of 10 weeks, you should have 10 chapters. You're going to take those 10 chapters, contract with a company online called Fiverr, where you can pay someone $35 to take that manuscript and clean it up grammatically and format it. Then you're going to have a cover created. I talked about ISBN numbers. There's so much. I'm just throwing the overview out there. But once that child has their first book created, the goal for them then is to create a one pager about their book. And let's just say the child is talking about when they got in trouble with the law. Let's say they were a juvenile delinquent, they got in trouble and they wrote about it. The goal is now to send your one pager about your book to every juvenile justice agency or mentoring agency in the country. Yes, that's a lot of work, but that's your work. That's what you're going to do for 365 days out the year. And hopefully 10, 20, 30 of those agencies will bring you in as a guest speaker and author. You
Wow.
just created a platform. And when your child graduates from high school, you gave him a 700 credit score and a business profile, and he's an entrepreneur.
Y'all got that? I told y'all he's dropping the mic. He's giving us information that we don't have. And what I like about Mr. Thomas is that he puts this information out because there are a lot of us in our own community who have the knowledge, have the understanding, has the information, but we're not sharing it with others. And we have to do this. We thank you so much, Mr. Thomas,
My pleasure.
for all of this wonderful head knowledge. And the audience, just from looking at the comments, they are really enjoying this. And if you guys appreciate them, give them some more hearts. We're asking for those hearts. And I will honestly say, you are always welcome to come back on this platform. And I'm gonna let you and Kenny go ahead with y'all closing thoughts, and then we're gonna go into the closing.
I'll give it up to you, Mr. Osceola.
Well, it was just a pleasure for me to be here. I just want to share with individuals. If you look at Facebook, I'm on Facebook, Osceola Thomas. Every day, I provide free information on my timeline, and that information is basically to help people move from their current station of living and to improve their station of living. So I have information on there about estate planning, information on there about finances. This month, I'm focusing on trusts and whole life insurance policies because those are the vehicles that's going to create a way for people to leave generational wealth or a legacy. So I provide that information free. And I have people ask me all the time, Osceola, you could do consultations and charge for this. I make a good living as a grant writer and a consultant. So this is my give back to the community because I don't want to live a good life if I can't see others around me living a good life as well. I'm not trying to floss and I'm not trying to be above anyone. I want to see us all win collectively. Because here's the truth of the matter. Think about this. If God made everybody on the planet a billionaire, it wouldn't touch his interest, more or less his principle. So why are we fighting each other for resources? Why are we afraid to share? So I'm not afraid to share because I know blessings are earmarked. What's for me is for me, and what's for you is for you. I couldn't have it if I wanted to. So again, follow me on Facebook, and I'll follow you back. But I want you to reach out to me if I can be of assistance. And my prayer tonight is that you and your family win.
Mm. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I,
All
I,
right, Mr. Kenny.
I'm just, I'm speechless, man. Let me come on in here, show my face. I your spirit is amazing. What you're doing is amazing. You know how people think of these things, and if only people were out there like that. You are that reality. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
definitely are that reality. You're godsend. You truly are, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I look to get in touch with you very soon on some things, and as well, if I can help or be of assistance to you in anyhow, like there's someone mentioned about you doing a show online, I can get behind the scenes and work that for you if you like,
Thank you. Thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll
And we
talk
you
about
can
that once
we
it's
can
over.
we can swap knowledge.
That would be great.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight out there in Facebook world. We thank you, greatly appreciate you all chiming in and soaking up all of this wonderful information to each one to teach one to create and make our community that much better and stronger and more knowledgeable. And that's what it's about. Because like Mr. Thomas said earlier, without a vision or lack of knowledge, my people perish. And it's so true. I mean, not knowing how the system is set up and how you can make the system work for you is why every generation is starting from ground zero. And I look forward to change that with my boys and my grandbabies. I've already implemented some of this stuff that you've talked about already, but
Excellent.
I'm definitely I'm on board with all of it, and just look forward to sharing with you, brother.
That's mutual.
Sharing, and man, you got people still commenting. I'll be reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. Also, let's you know, I'm just everybody knowledgeable dude. But again, thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. It was definitely a pleasure, and you are welcome anytime, anytime.
Thank you.
And that's all I got to say. Whew. Oh,
Oh my God. I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I thank you guys for participating. The comments is just out there, the praises are there for you, Mr. Thomas. And you that special guest. We gonna have some behind the scene talks because there's some things we gotta talk about. We gotta get you in here. Um, you have certainly, there is no doubt about it, dropped some golden nuggets here tonight. And if you have not ordered The Streets Can't Have My Son, guys, go and get it. Carol, I still have your book. I wasn't going to give it to you until we got through this session. But y'all order that book. It will bring you, a whole lot of understanding.
said bring them
Go ahead
back.
and order it. It's a must have for every home library. I'm telling you guys. A special thanks to KJ Multimedia Solutions of Marietta, Georgia. He's the man behind the setup. He's the man who works behind the scenes. And I could not have done it without him. Special thanks to P&T Realtor of Marietta, Georgia. Y'all looking to buy a house? That's my brother and his wife too. They will sell you a house. My brother will make you videos. He will take pictures. A lot of people have commented to me, Kenny, for real, about this setup. And I let them know that it is you. So y'all reach out to my brother if you're looking for something like this. And this is a reminder, as always, we are excited to bring things to the table that's going to help our community.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, we're also excited to highlight our young people who are doing great things in their communities, who's doing great things in the schools, who's doing great things in the churches. We know the news media is not going to do it. So we are here to do that. We have to encourage them. We have to stand behind them. We have to keep them prayed up. So reach out to Grandma Polly. You know, we will give them this moment to come forward and shine. And, you know, follow us on social media. Mr. Thomas has his social media pages. Follow us on the Big Rig Kids organization, because we're going to keep these topics coming. And I just want to thank you all for being here tonight. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mr. Thomas, we can't say thank you enough.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invite.
Somebody commented before we go out that they already have your book. So see, y'all, come on. The rest of y'all go ahead and get it, because it's awesome. And I just want to say to you guys, Grandma Polly loves you. We appreciate you. And share this. Share this so your friends and stuff can see what's going on. If this is the only way we can reach them and educate them, get the videos out.
Definitely.
Get them out. Thank you. Love you guys. Next week we have 2 college students who are coming on, and they're going to be talking about starting college during the COVID pandemic, because that was a difficult time for them also. So y'all tune in next Thursday, 7 o'clock live. Y'all be there and invite a friend. Love you guys.
Love you.